Well, first things first, how are you?
I'm feeling great. Yeah, I just announced my EP, so I'm really excited for that. Yeah.
That's very good to hear. So before we get into the EP, I'd like to talk about kind of how you arrived at that spot. So
Yeah.
let's jump back to the beginning. Did you always have a dream of making music, performing for people?
I always sang songs and wrote music.
Okay.
That was always inside of my heart. But I think personal circumstances kind of forced me to release the music as well because I noticed how healing music can be sometimes and how it can be how your own healing process as an artist can be beneficial for others too. So that was why the urge uh, to release music came to life actually.
What did the first kind of attempts at songwriting look like?
I think I was 16 years old and I didn't really even play a musical instrument. I was just humming melodies and recording them. And it sounded like, I don't know, it sounded like, I wish I still had those files because it sounded like shit, to be quite honest. But I think what I really liked about doing it wasn't a way for me um, to explain my feelings to someone else than a person. So it was my own safe space where I could hide as a teenager. I think that's one of the most beautiful aspects of making music.
In, in those early days, did you ever think, okay, I'm going to release this, I'm going to share this with people? And you mentioned kind of that moment where you felt like you had to, and obviously that wasn't a fun moment for you. So
Exactly.
uh,
Yeah.
can you kind of describe what led up to that and why you kind of felt like, okay, I need to share this?
Well, I always loved performing on stage. So I always liked to perform for other people and to stand in the spotlight because I was always very shy and I didn't really speak a lot. So that was like I think it was a way for me to connect to people. But after something quite sad happened, um, I I knew that I had to do something with my stories because when I was dealing with my own healing process, I needed the songs to uplift me. So I felt that writing these songs for myself could help others too. And in my case, I dealt with the loss of my mother, and that was 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I realized how writing songs offered me a different perspective on the loss of someone who was dear to me.
Sure.
Yeah,
And obviously that's a very devastating moment. But there was a line somewhere like make finding beauty in loss or creating beauty out of a difficult situation. So
yeah,
that mindset, was that difficult to get to? Because I can imagine it's a difficult time in terms of the emotions you go through. So
yeah.
when did you kind of think, well, I have to do something productive with this?
Um, the question that stick to my head was, how can someone so dear to you disappear in a blink of an eye?
Right.
And where does that person go? That was quite unreal. And still to this day, I still sometimes can grab the thought that she's not here anymore. So so I thought maybe there is a way how I can still keep her alive in a way. And I thought by writing songs about her, I can still keep her memory alive. And I think a memory in love is a legacy too, because that's a memory that doesn't go away.
Sure.
So, for example, in my song Gold, I speak of memories as like golden trophies that you can store within your heart and that you can keep forever. So this whole process of writing songs to me was also a way of keeping her with me.
Hmm. And if we get too personal, just let me know when we get to something else. But did your mother, was she into music? Did she like music?
Yeah, she did. Yeah, especially French music, and also she was quite she had a distinctive taste. So whenever I wrote songs, she either loved it or she hated it. There was no in between. So I think she really loved music. Not that she played any instruments or anything, but there was this interest in music as well.
Yeah, and in terms of you mentioned French music and the chansons, and so I can imagine that has influenced you in the way you create music and perform as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What I loved about French music is that these artists, like, for example, Charles Aznavour or the Belgian artist
Mm,
Jacques Brel, that they only need a microphone and a spotlight, and they can just wow a whole crowd just by singing and telling their stories and by their vocal delivery. And that's something that I miss in today's music industry because it's all about flashy production and
mm,
going viral on TikTok. And
sure.
I wish it was more about telling stories and being convincing by doing that.
Mm. And one thing I find really interesting, and you kind of the EP deals with that as well, is whenever something as impactful as the loss of a family member occurs, you start to reflect on life. And you mentioned gold and kind of realizing the importance of time and those kind of things. But then
Yeah,
also in Burning in Paris, you kind of write from the perspective of your father. And what I like about that song is that it kind of asks you to take a chance to pursue your what you want to do when you still have the time. So
exactly.
for you and music, when you were younger, did you think you could have a career in music? And especially now that you are trying to get there, what has that been like to kind of pursue that dream, even though there are risks involved?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because that's also the reason why I felt the strong urge to pursue music because
Mm,
um, shortly after my mom passed away, I found a note with all the things she wanted to do in life, like a bucket list.
mm,
And my dad was always like, well, we can do that like in 2 years, or we can do that later. And she postponed her dreams for years. So
mm,
I was like, I should not make the same mistake. I should pursue my dreams and follow my feelings in honor of her as well, because I think that's what we're supposed to do. And if we don't do that, then we will regret that forever. And in my dad's case, he wished he had a second chance and he could take her to Paris and visit family and things she wanted to do, but they never did.
mm.
So I think that experience taught me that it's important to follow your feelings and that you should not underestimate the power of your dreams. Yeah.
What was the first step then? Because you've always been into music and you've been writing songs. Did you already perform at that point, like 2 years ago? Did you perform live already?
I think it was during the pandemic back at the time.
Ah,
So
fair enough. Yeah, of course.
yeah, there
I
weren't.
already forgot.
Yeah, so I think that back at that time I didn't really perform, but
Okay.
before that I did, and it was always quite intimate. I was just me and the piano singing songs that I just wrote. It wasn't. I think it was just for fun. I think it was just because I wanted to tell a story to a few people. It wasn't as um, polished as it is right now, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And in terms of kind of if we listen to the EP now and considering where you were 2 years ago, what do you hear? What do you hear in your own voice? What do you hear in kind of the production and composition? Because you mentioned the olden days where it was just a voice, maybe one instrument, and you could make something really powerful.
Yeah.
And you recorded, I believe, all of the songs in one take in your
Yeah.
living room. So what was the approach musically, and how do you see that development from 2 years ago?
Yeah, so most of the songs are actually written in my bedroom, and I finished them with Will Knox and Isa Azir, and Daniel from Picards played piano on
Mm,
the songs.
okay.
And our approach was that sometimes live music can be more touching than recorded music because it sounds too polished and too perfect, like it's too perfect. And I think it's more valuable when you can actually hear the emotion of the artist, and sometimes these flaws that you record actually are quite beautiful.
Mm,
So we decided to record the vocals in the bedroom and the piano in the living room
okay.
simultaneously. And the first take we did was the take we kept because um, those takes captured the emotion as pure as it could be. So that was the reason why we wanted to do everything in one take. And later on, we added additional production in
Sure.
Berlin.
But is it because I can imagine since these songs deal with such a heavy topic, is it kind of automatic that you go back to that same emotion when you sing these songs, or can you kind of after having performed these songs for so many times now, can you kind of separate yourself a little bit?
Not really, to be honest. Um, I did the pre-shows of Thomas Azier in the Netherlands, and I had five
Mm,
shows in a row.
okay.
And every time I sang the same song, of course, but every time I sang the songs, it felt different because um, sometimes it feels like I'm singing these songs in honor of my mom. So it gives me the opportunity to think of her and to be grateful that I had experienced her love. And it's it doesn't feel like that will ever go away or
Mm,
that that's something that will change. So I think that singing these songs to me feels like reflecting on these memories, and yeah, it always feels quite healing to sing these songs. So
okay.
it's not that I'm really performing on the stage. No, it feels like these songs, um, yeah, I think they offer me a different perspective every time I sing them on the
Mm.
stage.
And that's
So
interesting to hear because you have a very distinctive style, I would say. So, had, uh, did performing live and especially as intimately as you do, did that come naturally to you? Did you always feel comfortable on stage?
yeah, I think so. Because in person I'm quite shy and quiet.
Mm.
I'm not really a talker, to be honest. So
Well, thank you
in
for doing this.
yeah, yeah, I always feel uncomfortable doing small talk and stuff. But
Mm.
when standing on the stage, I feel more confident because I can do what I really love to do, which is making music and singing and performing. So um, I actually forgot what the question was, actually.
No, but you're kind of you seem very natural as a performer, so that
Yeah,
has always been there, I suppose.
yeah. It feels supernatural to me. Also because sometimes you can look people in their eyes and see that they feel the music too, and you can really connect to people, and that's easier on a stage than in person. Yeah.
No, but that's an interesting point because what have you noticed in how people respond to the music? Because it's so personal, but I mean, loss is something I think most of us can relate to in some way or another. So, what has the reaction been like, and what have you heard from people who've heard you sing?
Well, the past couple of weeks, I'm getting a lot of response from people from Turkey,
Okay,
and people are super supportive and send me personal messages about how the songs um, are meaningful to them because they have experienced the same things as I did.
sure.
Um, so that makes me super grateful to be able to do this because I think that's the reason why I make music
Mm.
is to offer, yeah, as I said before, to offer the benefits of my own healing process to others as well.
And I want to get into one song a little bit more specific. Leap of Faith. That one, I mean, the title already suggests it's kind of that jump into the deep end and just
Yeah.
seeing how it goes. So do you remember that moment when it felt like that for you?
Um, I think I already felt that when I was a bit younger.
Okay.
Um, when I moved to Amsterdam, I used to live in a very small town, so I didn't really feel like I fit in the small town. So
Mm,
I wanted to move to a place where I could find people that were just like me, or that we could talk about culture and music, and that's not weird to be creative.
mm.
Um, so that was my first leap of faith, and later on, I think it's also it differs per. I think the song means to me that in order to in order to get what you want, in order to live an authentic life, sometimes you need to take the leap of faith because otherwise you will always be stuck in your old habits, your old environment, and sometimes you need to go to another place or to do things completely different
Mm.
in order to get closer to where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and especially in terms of music, that it is somewhat of a risk you're taking. But especially growing up, I mean, we're Dutch, and the way you grow up is just you go to school, you go to university, all that kind of. It's a very standard
Yeah,
way of living. So you have to kind of, if you want to live true to yourself, like you say, you kind of have to break with that and just try things out, I suppose.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So, with everything that we've talked about in mind, then we talked about that dream and not wanting to waste any chances and waste time in a sense or opportunity. So,
yeah,
how do you see? I don't want to say the future because it's always a bit weird because you can't predict the future. But what is it that you want to get out of this music? Are there any dreams, so to say, you still have?
yeah, absolutely. This project was all about telling intimate stories. And in the future, I would love to build a visual world around
Hmm.
Morpheus as well. And it because these songs are so personal and intimate, it didn't feel right to do that with these songs. But in the future, I would love to go crazy with the visuals as well. So
Okay.
I'm quite ambitious regarding building a whole world around my music because I feel like it's important to that these two elements can empower each other.
Sure. Yeah, with that in mind, then, have you already started writing new material? Because I can imagine that this EP is very much kind of a snapshot of a certain time, and that
Yeah,
obviously you're in a different headspace now than perhaps you were 2 years
absolutely.
ago. So, have you
Yeah,
started writing new things?
yeah, I have actually. I already have so many songs that
Okay,
are about to be produced and finished, and I have so many ideas for the upcoming projects. Um, I think I want to experiment with electronic sounds as well
okay,
because it was an acoustic EP, of course, and I
mm,
think there's a lot to discover in the electronic world. So
sure.
that's what I want to do for my next project.
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see what you come up with. So, thank you so much for taking the time, and
Thank
good
you
luck
for
with the
having me.
EP, and we'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah, we will see. Let's keep in touch.